I was probably 2 to 3 kilometers away. We were in a burned out building that wasn't, like super fortified, and people still live there. That's, I think, one of the saddest aspects of this whole fight is even in the no man's land gray zones that you're talking about, like there's still civilians there, and unfortunately there are sadists on the Russian side that are hunting anybody that moves.
This is the
Um,
human safari, I think it's called.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. I mean, it's just unconscionable, especially with how good their optics are. There is no excuse. It's not a dumb bomb that just lands in the wrong spot. They follow these people and blow them up.
All right, Curtis. Yeah, can you introduce yourself?
Sure, yeah, I'm Curtis Register. I'm a town councilor in my town of Durham. I'm from North Carolina, mid 30s, and I was born in Richlands, North Carolina, to a police officer and a teacher. And I wanted to see the world, so I jumped into the Marine Corps, and they sent me to the Southeast Pacific, even though I was learning Arabic in college at Virginia Military Institute. So they sent me the opposite way I thought I'd be going. So I stayed in the Southeast Pacific for 3.5 years or so, and did the whole the tour of Philippines for humanitarian assistance missions, South Korea for dog and pony shows against North Korea to make sure they didn't mess anything up. Guam, Indonesia for a protection detail for President Obama, and then Australia. Then I came back stateside, and I was blessed with a company command. And so I led a company of combat engineers in Camp Lejeune, and been a significant. I got 3 years as company commander, and that's not necessarily normal. And so I'm very grateful for that. And then after I'd served around 10 years, it was it was time.
How so? Were you just had you accumulated injuries and you just weren't able to do it anymore?
It's a mixture. I didn't honestly, the injuries, I guess my body did a good job managing that stress until I got out, because that was when I went to start getting checked in, the thread I guess got pulled and everything started to collapse. But the initial was I done what I came to do. I wanted to serve my country. I wanted to lead a platoon, and I led a platoon of engineers, and then I wanted to lead a company, and I led a company of engineers. After that, the jobs get exponentially less sexy, and it's a lot more PowerPoint planning, Word documents, Excel documents, and being the guy that enforces rules. And so uh, I had my time, and I was very blessed with great people that served with me. I'm very proud. One of the individuals I served with, Isaac Olvera, is actually one that went to Ukraine after I left, and he wrote a book. It's a book about his story of leaving the Marine Corps before he retired and going and fighting for a couple of years in the frontline units. And another guy I worked with was Captain Grady Kerpassi. You'll see him here. This guy is a freaking hero. He was a orphaned South Korean that got adopted and brought over. I worked with him in 2nd Marine Division tangentially. He did the enlisted stuff and then decided he wanted to be an officer, so he went the Mustang route and did it the hardest way possible. And then retired after 20 years in the Marine Corps, got out, Ukraine got invaded. He went over, and then unfortunately, the drones got him in April of 2022. And so he sacrificed his life because he believed in the Ukraine fight. He believed in liberty. And I have on my bracelet here, it says against all enemies, and may I have the courage to do what's right, similar to what Captain Grady Kerpassi and my friend Isaac did. So
I understand wanting to go to Ukraine, but you have a wife, you have a son. Why would you want to go there and then also go to the actual front line?
it's a complicated feeling or plan, but I felt compelled. I feel compelled. I don't particularly like what's going on in America right now, and I see the Russia-Ukraine fight as almost an ultimatum for freedom. And so, if Ukraine falls, we're going to see the next country fall and the next country fall. And I don't believe that America is going to choose to be on the correct side if Ukraine falls. And so I feel very tied spiritually, mentally, emotionally to this fight. Additionally, you get a lot of BS on the news, right? It's hard to determine if this is a fight worth investing in, if this is a foregone conclusion, what's going on? Is it even a fight, or are they just sending blind munitions and then there's nothing really else going on? And so I kind of had to talk with my wife, and she obviously wasn't happy about it, but she understood. And so we made it, we figured it out. And honestly, I wouldn't have been able to done it without her and without the community that kind of showed up around me in my neighborhood and in my town. People were reaching out and checking on her, and I mean, my wife said that she felt more supported with me going on this trip than she ever did on any of my other, deployments for the Marine Corps. And so, that was a really good feeling. But I needed to see it for myself. I needed to meet the Ukrainians that were risking their lives for freedom and for their country. And I just wanted to put boots on the ground and say I had at least tangibly done something.
So you fly to, do you go to the UK or did you land in Europe?
Yeah, so I flew into London, and this is all you just this is all super trusting, right? So I met these people on the internet. Hey, I want to go to Ukraine. I haven't met any of these people in person. I am confident that they're decent human beings, but I haven't worked with them. And so I fly to UK. I don't have a destination. I don't have an even a name for my contact in London, and I get that when I get there for the pickup. So, and I'm still trying to figure out the metro. I'm also, not a good traveler. I've got a significant PTSD, and usually have a service dog with me, but I wasn't able to take my service dog with me because of the quarantine stuff. And so this is my first trip, and it's my first trip without a dog in years. And so I'm a little on edge, and I'm culture shock and blah blah blah. I actually get hemmed up in uh, the airport as soon as I land because I have pocket knives on me. And then they're like, "Are you from America?" I was like, "Yeah." "You got any guns on you?" Like, "No, I don't have any guns on me." He's like, "You sure you don't have any guns on you?" And so I was like, "Just the pocket knives, man. That's all I got." And so he's like, "All right, this is fine, but don't use it." I was like, "All right." And I was able to get in and uh, get to my hotel room, reach out to the contact, get access. I jump on a train and I go to the middle of, a suburb. I'm looking for somebody to look for me, and I find him. Like, okay, cool. And so we link up. I meet him for like 30 minutes, and then I hop in his truck and I drive to the English Channel and cross the English Channel through the tunnel system, and I drive through France and get into Belgium. And then I'm getting into Belgium late, and the roads in Belgium are all cobblestone, and it's all super walkable and bicyclists and trams. And so I'm trying to find my hotel. Come to find out, my hotel isn't somewhere you can drive to. You have to park and then you have to walk into like the city to find this hotel. Well, I'm driving around and I end up going on one-way street. It's all very late. And I'm driving and I realize I'm going the wrong way. So I was like, you know what? We just need to back up. But I'm in, a bigger truck, a Hilux. And so I'm backing up doing a Austin Powers, 18-point turn. And eventually, like, oh, I'll just keep going. And there's one vehicle sitting at the end of the road going the right way. And I was like, oh, they're not going to like this. And I'm pulling up, and of course, it's local police. And I just kind of roll down my window, like, hey guys, how do I get to this hotel? And they're just looking at me like, is this guy drunk? What is going on here? And they just gave me directions and let me go. I was like, oh, hopefully they're just like, oh, crazy Americans. I go to the hotel, I finally take a breather, then get up the next day, and I head to Germany. And I guess on my way to Germany, there was some bad gas at one of the stations I stopped at or something. It's a diesel truck, I don't know what happened. But when I got to Germany, I ended up breaking down. And so I don't have any real reach back outside of the people for 50 states for Ukraine and Car for Ukraine. It's just me. And so I'm,
So you weren't
you,
part of like a bigger convoy or anything like that? It was
nope,
literally just you
just
and this truck.
just
Yeah.
me. Yeah, just driving. And so I YouTube it and reach out to the guy who gave me the truck, and he's helping me because he's got some savvy. And so I work on it for about 2, 3 hours before I'm able to figure out how to to get it up and running. And so I start off, and I think that was in Leipzig, and I had a significant amount of travel. I was supposed to get to Semmel, I think that, and that was like 600 kilometers. Well, I crossed the border to Poland, I think around 6 p.m. or something, and they got it right over there. They go 140 kph sustained, and it's all fast. I have a video of me passing a police officer at 140, and he actually gets out of my way so I can go. I just thought that was pretty cool. But my car engine shuts off, and I'm flying down the road at 140, and I'm like, oh, this is not awesome. And so I ended up pulling into a lane and getting into a truck stop. I didn't quite make it to a parking lot. I ended up stopping in the exit ramp, and so I had to roll off the grass there. And so I worked on it, but I'm an idiot. I don't know anything about trucks. I just know a little bit to figure it out in elbow grease. I'm stuck there for several hours. I don't speak any Polish. I didn't have any Polish money. I had
And
euro.
what time of day or night was this?
It was between 6 and 9 p.m. Yeah.
So not
And so
not business hours for
yeah,
Polish
definitely not
mechanics.
business
Yeah.
hours. Yeah. And so I ended up getting a guy come look at it, and he was quick. He was very efficient. And I was like, "Hey, how much you want for this?" And he just kind of scratched his head and he said, €200, which is steep, but it's not steep for being stuck. I was like, "Hell, take it. Thank you very much." And I gave a gas station attendant a challenge coin saying thank you very much for, translating for me because he was the only guy that spoke a little bit of English there. And so basically, this guy unfortunately had to tag along with me like everywhere I was going to try and ask questions. But then I get back up and running and I'm rolling, but it's still not good. And so I end up having to link up with another guy in one of the other cities to use his reader to read the engine. There was like 17 errors or something like that that came up. I was like, okay, well, this probably isn't me. I feel good about that at least. At least and so I limp along to Krakow. There was no way I was going to make it. And so we work it out to drop it off at a safe location. There's a little safe house they had for a shipping center. And so I drop it off there. I catch a bus into Ukraine, like within 5 minutes of departing. I was very, very quick and cross the border into Ukraine. I get there, I just get off the bus, and I'm in Lviv, and I don't know, it was very late, and I'm just walking around Lviv trying to figure out how to get to where I'm going. I, again, don't have a contact, I just have a name. He called me that evening, thankfully. We link up, and he was like, "All right, so we're gonna head out around 9 o'clock in the morning tomorrow. You good?" And I was like, "I will be good," you know. And
Sorry, just rewinding a little bit. It's
yeah, yeah,
6 to 9 p.m. in Poland when you're with your original truck. You get it fixed.
yep,
Then you drive to Krakow that same night.
yep, and spend the night there.
Okay, so you caught a bus
Yeah,
across the border
yep,
into Lviv the
yep.
following
That's right.
day. Okay.
That's right.
One more question about your original truck. So you named it the Iron Sentinel after
I
like,
did.
yeah, crowdsourcing a good name for the truck.
Yeah.
If the Iron Sentinel had 17 different engine codes, is it like actually valuable for the Ukrainian military? Like, are they going to be able to get it into working order?
I think so. I think it would probably have to have engine flushed, and there were some minor things that needed to get corrected, but some of those are frivolous. You don't necessarily need all those things to work. All the Ukrainian guys need is steering and the engine to go.
And it's
And so,
the lifespan of an armored truck is relatively short, so it's only
yeah,
the
and so
essentials
you'll
that they
get
need to
to
fix.
when we go to the front line, I was actually replacing the last truck car for Ukraine and sent out there because it had got blown up by a drone. That was why I was going.
Okay, so you take a bus from Krakow, Poland to Lviv, Ukraine, and then you meet your contact, and he says you're rolling out with another truck the next morning.
Yep, that's correct. Yeah. So the trucks you get are that you deliver to Ukraine are slick. They're civilian models, nothing special. When they get to Ukraine, the mechanics up armor it with steel plating. And so they put it on the windows, they put it on the engine to protect the passengers in the vehicle, and then they paint it a distinctive military color. And then for fundraising, we'll actually put fundraising information on there, like people who donated and stuff along those lines, as well as one of their famous Ukrainian generals. that they are find motivation and inspiration in. So I love that. But yeah, and it's a clutch. They're all clutch trucks. And so that was a trip because I had to learn how to drive clutch just for this trip.
How many times do you think you stalled on the drive from the UK to Krakow?
Oh, and the other one's automatic, thankfully. I don't
Oh,
know if I'd
so
have
the
gotten.
Iron
I don't know
Sentinel
if
is
I'd have.
automatic.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
The
nice. Okay.
that would have been. Yeah, I ended up calling the latest truck Odin's Raven because I was delivering it to the Black Ravens Brigade.
So okay, so it was a manual or a clutch from Lviv to your destination.
Oh yeah, yeah. I drove the whole way by myself. I think the most interesting thing was, and I didn't math it out because I didn't have a destination for the frontline positions. I only knew to get to Lviv. So I drove 1,700 kilometers from London to Lviv and another 1,100 kilometers from Lviv to Donbas. I did not realize Ukraine was almost as big as Europe. So it was definitely steep for driving stuff. And, to answer the clutch question, I probably stalled around a dozen times. And I think one of the most notable was I stalled as I was driving into a military checkpoint.
It's
And they
always
just kind of
when
like,
there are a lot of
yeah,
witnesses, that's when you
that's right.
really screw it up. So you keep saying the Donbas region. Can
Hmm.
you say what city you were close to?
Yeah, I think I can.
So not a light section of the front line with.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't like receiving fire, but the roads I was on had been hit. The buildings, the hospitals, I drove into Kiev and it was under attack, and so like the power was out in the city. And then past Kiev, I got to Polana, and that's when the roads started getting jacked up, and there was drone netting the entire way over the road, so like you didn't have any margin for error. There's no lane. Cars are just coming and going, and sometimes people pass each other in the one lanes around a curve at night. I mean, on my GoPro that I slapped onto the windshield, I taped with duct tape onto the windshield. I was just trying to get to how like harrowing. I was driving like on the edge of the road, but not so far that I didn't hit the netting, and there were still people just flying past me to get to wherever they were going, whether it was civilian or military. And I roll up probably 10 o'clock at night to the final battle position for the company commander. And it's just a dude with a cigarette in the alleyway. Just like, this could be anybody, honestly. I'd have no idea. Here's the key. Like, hey, I need you to sign this before I give you the keys. But yeah. And so I get there and I'm exhausted. I'm smoked. One, I don't travel. Two, I'm a super introvert. So I get there and they're like, okay, we're gonna chat. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to do this. And so it was him and his second or his like sergeant at arms, and they drop a bottle of rum and a bottle of vodka in front of me, and they're like, let's get to you, and I don't drink. I was like, okay, this is gonna be a trip, and so we knock them back, and and so we have a good, a really motivating, inspiring conversation between us just using Google Translate, and I think we hung out. I mean, this is the weird part for me because I'm in the military, or I was in the military, no alcohol, definitely not in a combat zone, and we're a lot more high strung as a service than the Ukrainian military is. We're a lot more rigid for our discipline, our distinction between the ranks, how we operate. I mean, I drove up to his position and he was under attack. Like they were shooting, there was machine gun fire and impacts, not on me, but on his positions out front. And he was confident his guys had it, and so we were just sitting, throwing it back, listening to machine gun fire, talking about where we're from and all that stuff. It was a very surreal experience. And yeah, and so I spent the night there with him, and then he took me to the COC the next morning, and I got to meet the guys. My son, Mattis, I had him draw up some letters for them, and so he's just learning how to write. So it wasn't super amazing, but like the three individuals in the COC, and then the couple I met on the front lines were just kind of touched. And I also brought smokes and dip. That always helps to lighten the. And I think I brought a decent amount of like tourniquets and chest seals and quick clot and stuff like that just to help as well. But they let me. I mean, they gave me access. They let me see what they were doing. I mean, it's incredible. The fight out there is. I feel like my knowledge of warfare is obsolete to the levels of World War I, where you had straight up charges into machine gun fire, into artillery fire, and tanks and aircraft and all that stuff changing how the fight, because the generals are still fighting like it's Franco-Prussian War type stuff. And I feel very similarly to the way they've implemented their drones and their electronic countermeasure suites and stuff like that. This, I mean, they had me in there. They were under attack. They were showing me the feed. I mean, they were slaughtering Russians. I mean, just I probably observed 40 kills while I was there. And I mean, I don't know what Russia's telling their people, but they're just running those guys straight into cut. I mean, it'd be like a squad of dudes just run from the tree line, and then they all die, or one of them would get away, and then another squad would come out. And so they would use the little, they called them FPV drones, suicide drones, throw them in there that with different munitions. They even took out a T-62 tank while I was there, and I was like, "That, how much does a drone cost?" And he's like, $300. It's like, you just took down a multi-million dollar piece of equipment with basically a toy. So I mean, it's very. I felt very jarred, from what I understand from warfare, particularly for my profession. I'm a combat engineer, and so one of our main focuses is mobility, demining, breaching obstacles. But we're there. We are on site. Wire clippers or Bangalore torpedoes or whatever, and there's no way if that tactic was used that my engineer teams would have survived.
You would just
There's
die
no way.
pretty much
I mean,
instantly. Yeah.
the optics were unbelievable. They killed a Russian in the tree line in a full ghillie suit. They saw him from afar and flew in to get him. And I was like, I mean, I don't even know what the point is of camouflage at that point. It is incredible. I mean,
How
there's
did
there's obviously some downsides to the drones, but the capabilities that they are employing are just unreal.
did they use like a thermal? Were they using thermal optics to detect this guy in the ghillie suit?
They had a variety of optics that they could flip through. It was and the resolution was incredible. I mean, you could see movement and zoom in on that location with your magnification. I mean, it was unbelievable. They flew into dudes' sleeping bags.
Based on what you saw, is it even possible to like move around on foot on the ground anymore? Or like if you're outside for more than a few minutes, like you'll be detected and then FPV'd?
So what I feel like they've got going here is they've created like a no man's land in Donbas. And so there is, I guess, I mean, because when I was there, I could see Russia occupy Donbas from our position. So they've got unmanned drones. I think they have guys forward in the no man's land. I never had to go into no man's land. I was on the I guess first echelon, the command post area of the frontline troops. And so I got to build drone. They showed me how to build a drone. They walked me around. I got to shake hands with the guys that were pulling security. And so that was cool. But they had dudes forward that were kind of like listing post and observer guys that were doing the killing. And I mean, this is totally decentralized. And from my experience, I believe in decentralized command and control, and we preach it in the Marine Corps, but the way you operate is fairly centralized. You have a battalion commander making decisions or a company commander making decisions. You don't have like a lance corporal or a corporal making decisions. And those kids, those 18, 22-year-old kids are observing targets, prioritizing targets, and executing fire missions autonomously. And that is unbelievable. And so they have those dudes forward, they'll just stay and they'll send unmanned like road drones full of supplies, food, chow, ammunition, water, and drive those across the no man's land to their positions for resupply. It was incredible, a very, very humbling experience to see, and their morale is unbelievable. Their morale is so high, at least in that particular section. Right, I only saw one slice of the battlefield on a very small period of time, but they're proud to be fighting. They're proud to be fighting for their home, and they're doing it, man. They are killing Russians at the cyclic rate.
So I recently watched a an interview on United 24 with a Russian, or he was a Belarusian guy who was sort of a career criminal and was charged with murder, wound up in prison, then was recruited by, I'm not sure if it was Wagner, but some other private
Sure.
military company. And this Belarusian guy was saying that the people that they're feeding into those meat assaults, those groups of like four to
Yeah.
five guys, and then either they all die or maybe one might survive. According to this captured Belarusian POW, like it is not like the Spetsnaz, like
Sure,
Russian SEAL Team 6 that they're sending out on foot. It's like,
sure,
yeah, people who are like not in great shape.
sure. I
Do you,
can't believe they go because it's
yeah,
just even if I mean it's I just can't believe it. I don't know that I would go if
based
I got
on
ordered to run across that field.
what you saw from the like the drone feed, was this like just anybody that they could scrape out of a prison that they were putting some fatigues on and giving a gun and telling them to go, or were these like well equipped, kitted out, fit Russians?
I didn't get good eyes on all of them, but I mean, they look like professional soldiers. Now, they were undisciplined. There were a lot of kills that were proximity because they didn't have good dispersion. And so they'd clump up and get hit. And so there's definitely something to be said about their military skills. But that might just be because they're new in the service. That doesn't necessarily mean they don't know what they're doing. Um, yeah, I mean, the Ukrainians are also doing something similar. They've got a military convict exchange program where I don't think they're throwing them away as bad as the Russians are, but they would basically take a convict and attach him to a team as like a pack mule. And I was like, that's actually a pretty great idea if you're having manpower concerns, in my opinion, as long as you can trust the individual to watch your back. And I met one of them, and that dude was running all over Tarnation, but he always had a smile on his face. So it was definitely weird, but I'd say there's probably something similar going along where they have a mixture of professional soldiers and convicts.
Did the officers that you were with in the sorry, you said COC?
Yeah, Combat Operations Center.
Yeah, so the people in the COC, did they talk about how long those forward deployed teams would be in the field for? Like,
My assumption, and based off of the way they were talking, was those dudes in bed for a week at a time.
when I asked you that question, I thought you were going to say like 4 months. They'll be out there
Oh
for
no, no,
months
no.
at a
Yeah, no,
time, but a
no. I
week
think they
doesn't
rotate them
sound
up.
okay.
Well, I mean, they're constantly under attack, and so that, I mean, just being awake for 5 days is, I mean, that's, I've done it, and I've not, it's hard. It's very hard, especially when you're having to prioritize, observe targets and stuff like that. It gets very taxing very quickly, and so, I mean, I was shocked a week, 'cause that's a lot. But they rotate them back. But I mean, those dudes, I mean, they've been living this for a very long time. One of the guys I was talking to in one of the locations that he drove me to. He was like, "Yeah, the Russians were on this building over here, and that we were taking tank shots from this, and we finally pushed them back. But it's still surreal to be walking through this with you." And I was like, "Yeah, surreal for you. It's crazy for me. That's awesome that you made it. And I'm sorry you had to endure that, but way to defend your country."
So I've listened to a couple of interviews saying that the most dangerous moments are when you're infilling and exfilling from these
Yes.
forward positions.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and that's true for warfare. Forward passage of lines is something the Marine Corps or military troops do, and that is always the most dangerous because if you get attacked, not only are you not necessarily paying as close of attention as you need to, you might be pulling your positions, but there's also confusion for friendly fire because you now have troops coming in. And we actually had an insider attack while I was there that got thwarted because there were a buddy team of guys in Ukrainian uniforms, but they didn't speak any Ukrainian, and so they actually got detained and took him for questioning. And so it's a very weird, like that's a very challenging time because you're heightened, you're tired, and you add in the uncertainty: is are these friendlies or are these Russians pretending to be friendlies?
How how close into that gray zone were you? Like how many kilometers away?
I was probably 2 to 3 kilometers away. We were in burned out building that wasn't, like super fortified, and people still live there. That's I think the one of the saddest aspects of this whole fight is even in the no man's land gray zones that you're talking about, like there's still civilians there, and unfortunately there are sadists on the Russian side that are hunting anybody that moves.
This is the
Um,
human safari, I think it's called.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. I mean, it's just unconscionable, especially with how good their optics are. There is no excuse. It's not a dumb bomb that just lands in the wrong spot. They follow these people and blow them up. And it's definitely one of those human costs of war that when you see it, it hits. And these people are such hard-working, resilient folks. They just go about their business. We had incoming while I was grabbing coffee was one of the with Kiba, and nobody even moved. They just, they just kept doing what they were doing. I think if there had been impacts nearby, that would have changed things, but they're just so used to the constant assault that they have to keep moving. The Ukrainians have done a good job with concealment. They've done a good job picking battle positions that weren't too close to urban centers. And they also have on the light tactical vehicles, they have a modification they can put on that helps disrupt the signals for the enemy drones. And so it makes it easier to hide or easier to disable the drone and actually confiscate it.
Did seeing this massive number of Russians get killed have any kind of psychological impact on you?
Seeing death is always a unique experience, but I've dealt with a lot of that. Seeing the civilians, that's still a challenge. But yeah, honestly, we were hooting and hollering. It's like I'm not gonna lie, like we were cheering on the as we'd watch the thing fly in and you'd see the death reel and all that, and it was just like, go home if you don't want to catch these bombs, go home.
So these, like the FPV drone teams in particular, the Ukrainian FPV drone teams, their kill counts must be greater than the most successful snipers like in history.
Yeah, easily. I don't and I don't mean that in a derogatory way to the professional warriors that get in and kill the enemy. But just the quick turn of in the decision making cycle. I mean, it's completely almost autonomous. And honestly, with AI implementation, these drones are going to be targeting and executing cycles on their own in the next 5, 10 years. And that's some Terminator level terror. But no, I think there was something like saying that 3% of the Ukrainian armed forces accounts for 97, 98% of the kills. It's such a unique tactic that has, like I said, changed the battlefield. Obviously, warfare is going to be similar. The principles of warfare are the similar, but how that is employed has changed.
So, given the amount of Russian invaders that they're killing, did it seem like the Ukrainians that you spoke to were at all psychologically damaged by the number of people that they've had to kill, or are they
Oh,
like secure in the knowledge that like these people are invaders? If they get in and take over our country, like it'll be a very, very dark time for Ukraine.
I don't know about the civilians. I talked to a couple of civilians, not they're killing people, right? But they're enduring the death. They seem okay. They're sad, they're scared, but they're resolved. The soldiers are in good spirits, but death has a toll. Even when you're doing the right thing, death has a toll. And that's one of those things where you won't find it until you integrate back into society and you realize how the stress has manifested itself. Kiba, my bodyguard, was telling me that he's been fighting actively, like fighting since 22, and his dad has been fighting since 22, and his brother had been fighting since 22, and his brother actually got captured in I think Mariupol that first year, and he'd been in when I was in Ukraine, he was still in captivity. I just got a text last week from Kiba saying, with pictures saying his brother had finally come home, and I mean he was emaciated. He had clearly been tortured, but he was alive. He was happy to be back with his brother now that they had to put him in a rehabilitation, which he's currently going through, and he'll probably be there for a long time. And there's lifelong impacts to that. But I know Kiba's happy. But I mean, he was telling me Kiba was like he started this war shooting people with guns, and now he's fighting this war with drones because that's how quickly the rapid change in tactics and technical capacity has been. And we were kind of talking about our families. He's got a little kid, but he joined with 13 of his friends. He had a group of friends. There's only 3 of them left. He gave me one of the unit patches for one of his best friends, Yaktich. That and he's got a kid, and he's no longer with us. And Kiba's got a kid, and he was showing me his family. And we were talking, and he said, I've seen a lot of terrible things. I've done some terrible things in this world. The thing I've seen the least in this world is kindness. Just telling me that. Got to hit something he was talking with this kid about. He's talking about being kind, and these people are going to be going through PTSD for the rest of their lives. I think they know it's necessary, but there is always going to be that emotional and mental cost to humanity.
So, Kiba's story that he told you about the importance of being kind as he was talking to his son, is that what you were thinking about when you posted that final
Oh
LinkedIn or your
yeah,
second to last LinkedIn post where you shared that story of being on the train and these Ukrainians fed you?
yeah, man, that was. I mean, I don't think I'm a crier, but I mean that about knocked me off my feet. And so the way that went was I was on a bus. We were crossing the border to catch my flight to Warsaw, and this is all very tight timeline. So I'm like chewing my fingernails trying to do this because the way I got off the front, because I didn't have a truck anymore, was I caught a ride to a train station 2 hours from the front. I got on the train station. I rode that for a day, essentially, to Lviv. I got off Lviv. I had 15 minutes to find a bus, get on the bus. And so now I'm finally on the bus. It's full of women and children and old men, not a lot of military age males. We get to the checkpoint. The Ukrainian border patrol guy thinks I'm an insider threat or something because I'm the only man. So they isolate me and they're like, "Hey, why are you here?" And I was like, "I was just helping Ukraine." And I show my ID, and I had lost my wallet in Donbas, and I didn't know it until I got to the border patrol. And so all I had was my passport. Thankfully, I had that, but I didn't have any cash. I didn't have any secondary ID, and so I don't have the beard in my passport photo. And so I show him my passport, and he's like, "I don't think this is you, man." It's like I don't know how to prove it otherwise. This is me. And so they pulled me aside, and I had two drones that I had taken back with me. One had been knocked out of the sky, and one had been given to me by Kiba. And so I had them in my luggage. And I was like, well, I'll put it in a Faraday bag. I guess maybe that'll help reflect it off so they won't see it if I throw it in the X-ray machine. Nah, that thing didn't do anything. They saw that thing right away. I pulled it out, and they're like, "What is this? What have you been doing?" Thank goodness I had like 50 states for Ukraine patches in there. And so they open it up. It's got all my junk in there. I've got like, some souvenirs, FUV, a lot of dirty laundry. It smells like diesel fuel and ass. And I'm like, hey, this is who I am. This is what I've been doing. I just drove a truck, seen the guys, taking the stuff back as a training aid to talk about, like how drastically warfare's changed. And you could kind of see the transition on the guy's face. And I had the 50 States for Ukraine patch, and I was like, hey, like, hey, you want this? You can have it. Just, I'm a part of this program, Car for Ukraine. If you know it, it's good to go. And then, they're just like, oh, okay. And so actually, I got the Border Patrol patch out of it too because he swapped patches with me, and I thought that was the cool to give me a bro handshake and all of it. It was amazing.
That's
And then I
awesome.
get on the bus, drive to the checkpoint, get off the bus in Poland, and have to go through it all again because the Polish guys want to search me, and they are much more agitated because they don't. There's a weird thing between Poland and Ukraine because Poland and Ukraine have fought their own conflicts against each other. And so they're not exactly like behind Ukraine. They don't want Russia to invade them, but it's more of a love-hate
Yeah,
relationship
there's some
and
bad historical blood there.
animosity. Yeah, yeah. And so I'm going through the checkpoint. Well, they've got a metal detector there, and I didn't know that, and I'm covered. I've got knives on me. I've got my dog tags at this point. I've got a bullet casings I didn't know I had on me. So I get there. They want me to go through the metal detector. Oh, I had pepper spray and stuff. They thought that was a hand grenade. I mean, I ended up getting so frustrated. I took my clothes off and just walked through, and they about had an aneurysm because I walked through in my underwear. I was like, I'm just trying to show you I don't got nothing on me. It's all in my pants. And so I finally talked my way through that. But I'm stressed. This is not something I'm enjoying. And I get outside. We're still waiting in the cold because they won't let us hang out inside to get cleared. We have to wait outside before they make the determination, and we can't get back on the bus. And so we're waiting there, and I'm kind of repacking my junk because I had to dump it all on the floor. And this woman and her son were standing there, and I had bought at a gas station because it's not like I stopped at any shops or anything. So on the way to one of the positions in Donbas, I was like, I should probably buy some souvenirs to bring back to people. So I bought a whole bunch of like air fresheners and Hot Wheels car toys, the Ukraine version. I bought a keramic knife, just whatever the gas station had. And so I had a couple of these trucks that kind of looked like the truck I drove, and I saw the little kid. And he reminded me of Mattis. And I miss my boy. And so I was like, "Hey, you mind if I give your son this truck?" And at first she was like, "No, who is this weird guy?" But the kid lit up like a Christmas tree. And she kind of looked at him, and she looked at me, and she said, "Okay." And so I gave it to him, and I'm feeling like a good person because I done something nice, and I feel good about it. And that's the end of it, like it just I did something cool. And then I get on the bus, and we're driving some more, and we get to Lublin, and that's their stop. I still have another couple hours to go to Warsaw. Well, getting off the bus, she kind of taps me on the shoulder, and in broken English, because I don't speak any Ukraine. I just have people translate. And in broken English, she tells me, "Hey, thank you so much for coming and helping for the toy, for coming to Ukraine and helping." And she gives me some food. And I mean, I ate that thing like a cartoon character. I was so hungry because I hadn't had anything besides water, essentially, for almost, I don't know, like 2 days because of the way the transit had been, and I couldn't grab anything. And so I was ravenous. And she was just like, when I told her like I hadn't eaten in a while, and she just starts ripping stuff out of her bag and handing it to me. I'm like, I'm not trying to mug you, like I'm just telling you I'm grateful. And she says, "Oh no, it's no problem. I'm going home. This is not a big deal." And then her son comes up to me and looks at me, and I look at him and I shake his hand. I'm like, "Hey man, be good. Take care of your mom." And that guy handed me his little apple turnover he was eating. And dude, that almost took me out. I was just so touched by it. I was so exhausted. I was so hungry. And it was just such a really human, kind moment.
That's a that's an awesome story. Yeah,
Thanks,
it
man.
like when I listened to that on LinkedIn, I definitely sort of I didn't break up, but it was close. Yeah. Um, did you see any like fiber optic cable drones? Was that a risk for you as you were driving your truck and then into the position and then getting back out? Were people concerned about I think they're called dunes or something, the fiber
So there
optic
are
drones that you
definitely
just wait?
Yeah, there are definitely areas of Ukraine that are like spiderweb forests because of the fiber optic drones. Now, the Ukrainians have moved on to a Starlink connected wireless capacity. And so all of these drones that I saw didn't have a tether. They were all whatever signal and they were flying around. But they absolutely had drones that were just laying in the grass that were connected to the operator but not flying. And I mean, I saw them take out a couple of vehicles like that. Thankfully, I didn't have any impacts, all the attacks that were around me, nothing made me duck and cover.
Sorry,
It
these were
was
all Russian drones that were hitting
uh,
vehicles?
negative. These are Ukrainian drones.
Oh,
They were
gotcha.
doing the
Okay.
same tactic where they would wait in no man's land just with a drone laying on the ground by itself until they saw movement, and they'd fly up like a almost like a bouncing Betty and blow the vehicle or the personnel up. The I felt the impacts of some things from afar, but like I mean, I'm sure I was at some risk, but I didn't have any injuries or anything like that.
So when you say you felt the impact, this is just like you can feel the concussion of the explosive.
Yeah, you can hear yeah, you can, yeah.
And this is why all of the trucks provided by 50 States for Ukraine and Car for Ukraine, they're basically expendable, not ammunition exactly, but they will not last
Well,
long.
the more expensive stuff is getting blown up too quick, and I don't know if this is true or not, but they were claiming that their shape charge could penetrate uh, Abrams tanks and T-81s. And I mean, I don't know of anything that can penetrate an Abrams, so I don't know if that was just bravado or what. But I mean, that's a lot of bang for a little buck.
Final question. You lost your wallet somewhere in the Donbas.
Yeah.
How did this
hmm
happen?
So when I was doing the tour of the positions, they were driving me around and letting me talk to guys. I wanted to shake their hand, tell them how grateful I was. I had brought a smokes and dip that I wanted to hand to them and observe how they were doing and what they were training. They had me build a drone. They had me blow up stuff. They had me try to fly the drone, which is harder than you think. That was a lot of fun. But basically, I went through 3 or 4 different positions, and inside the car, outside the car, and I mean we're driving in the sedan. I think I'm like rolling around with a FAMAS machine gun in my lap, listening to 3 Days Grace, driving to a battle position. It was definitely a surreal experience. Like I said, they fight way different than I am used to. We are much more rigid and controlled, a lot more radio. discipline, a lot more unit integrity. But I think these guys have obviously made it work. Their way of fighting is working, and I think between the amount of death they've had to deal with, the amount of constant assault, and the duration of this fight has made them adapt in a way that this is like their life. This isn't going to war and then you come home. Like they've been fighting continuously.
Yeah,
Uh,
they are home.
yeah,
So you're at some point like shuttling around to these different positions.
and
You
I guess it just fell out of my pocket.
fill out of your
Yeah, like
pocket.
an idiot. And thankfully, Kiva went back and found it. He mailed it to me. I got it a couple months later.